And a lot of them, said to me, Stan, you have the capabilities, and our city is at a crossroads. So you need to really put your name forward for the benefit of not only Northeast Calgary, but for the city. So I went to school. I went to the University of Calgary and I studied actuarial science, which is, for your viewers that don't know, it's pretty much mathematics, data analytics, predictive analytics, statistics, risk management, economics, accounting, finance. It's all kind of rolled into one. Do a lot of data crunching, data-driven decision making, trying to forecast future trends, and much more. So what I bring to the table is experience, both private and public. There's no on-the-job training. On day one, I will be ready to advocate and fight for the programs, amenities, and services that we all deserve.
Hi, Stan. I can imagine how busy you are in your campaign right now, but you still made time to talk to me and the audience. Thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you, Roop, for having me. It's a pleasure, and I'm so excited to be with your audience today.
Thank you. Before I get into the questions, I am just reminded of a conversation that we've been having online recently in the last week about ਸਾਡਾ ਸੰਧੂਆਂ ਦਾ ਮੁੰਡਾ election ਲੜ ਰਿਹਾ, ਸਾਡੀ ਗਰੇਵਾਲਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੁੜੀ election ਲੜ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਸਾਡਾ ਸਿੱਧੂਆਂ ਦਾ ਮੁੰਡਾ election, ਧਾਲੀਵਾਲਾਂ ਦਾ ਮੁੰਡਾ election ਲੜ ਰਿਹਾ. How do you feel about that?
You know what? It's been a tremendous honor to put my name forward and to connect with the community and see the passion of my supporters from all different communities that are just so excited to move Northeast Calgary forward. And like I said, it's just an honor, and I'm so excited as we move forward here.
You're running to be a councillor in Ward 5. Could you please list all the communities in Ward 5 for me?
Yeah, so Ward 5 is pretty much north of McKnight, surrounded by Stony Trail and Deerfoot, excluding Coral Springs. So the communities are Falconridge, Castleridge, Martindale, Taradale, Saddleridge, Cityscape, Skyview Ranch, Redstone, and Cornerstone.
And what is it about Ward 5 that you love the most?
You know, there's so many things I love about Ward 5 in Northeast Calgary. I mean, I'm a product of these communities. I grew up here. I went to high school at Lester B. Pearson. I'm an avid volunteer with the community, with our local youth in ice hockey, basketball, soccer. I'm a board member at the Genesis Center. So I'm an active member of the community. And I think that the most impressive part about Ward 5 is really our diversity. It's so beautiful to see a mosaic of cultures come together and just connect, and the vibrancy. I mean, I always tell people we have the best restaurants in the city. We have the best communities in the city. And I think for me, it's really important that we move our communities forward, make sure that we get the right investments, programs, amenities, and services as we move into the post-pandemic recovery.
You worked with Councillor George Chahal, who is now an MP, in his office in his recent term, the only term. Do you think that puts you at an advantage or at a disadvantage when running for a councillor yourself?
You know, look, I'm friends with everybody that I've built relationships with at City Hall. Jyoti Gondek, Jeff Davison, Jeremy Farkas, George Chahal, Mayor Nahid Nenshi, you name it, every single councillor I've had a conversation with over the last several months. When I was considering putting my name forward, I actually got a call from the majority of councillors that I had the ability and opportunity to work with. And a lot of them, said to me, Stan, you have the capabilities, and our city is at a crossroads. So you need to really put your name forward for the benefit of not only Northeast Calgary, but for the city. So I think, the experience I gained, the policies, the processes, the relationships, understanding the job. And like I said, I mean, from day one, there's going to be so many important decisions that this new council makes. In November, a month after this municipal election, we have one of the biggest budgets that's going to be discussed and debated. And not only my private experience as a pricing actuary, but my public experience as a chief of staff in this office, I think gives me the right tools and competencies to make the right decisions to make sure we keep moving forward.
Could you shed some light on your private experience that you just mentioned? What did you do as a actuary, you said?
Yeah, so I went to school. I went to the University of Calgary and I studied actuarial science, which is, for your viewers that don't know, it's pretty much mathematics, data analytics, predictive analytics, statistics, risk management, economics, accounting, finance. It's all kind of rolled into one. Do a lot of data crunching, data-driven decision making, trying to forecast future trends, and that type of stuff. So I think that gives me the right skill set to actually deal with a lot of the problems that the city is dealing with. And I actually use my skill set from the private experience, private sector, many times behind the scenes over the last 4 years. And I think that will help me in making decisions not only for budget, but for many other things as we move forward as well.
What are the top 3 issues that you're hearing at the doors in Ward 5 when you're out there campaigning?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of issues. I mean, in Ward 5, you hear about things like snow removal or taxes or green line. I mean, that sometimes pops up, or blue line extension. So LRT, speeding and transportation issues, and there's so much more. But I think as a collective, as a city, what I'm hearing from a lot of people is the economy, jobs. Obviously, getting through this pandemic is top of mind right now. We're in that 4th wave, and public safety is number one priority. But as we get past the pandemic, I think it's for me, I talk a lot about post-pandemic recovery, which is economy, jobs, diversification, and making sure we move forward as a city.
You mentioned taxes, property taxes. That's an issue, I think, that is important to every homeowner in the city. And almost 1 in 3 downtown spaces currently are vacant. And these vacancies and plummeting property values in downtown core, they've had a widespread impact, including on property taxes. So in council in 2019 voted 10-5 to shift the tax burden away from the commercial property owners and onto homeowners, which resulted in an average of 7.5% hike for homeowners. And I've talked to a lot of people for this election, including people who are in my ward, which is not Ward 5. I'm in Ward 3. I think it hurts across the city, the tax hikes, the property tax hikes. And I don't see any way of them getting reduced in the near future. And talking about business owners, they're paying 3.4 times more in taxes than residential property owners, and COVID has especially hurt them. So the question is, do you cut services or do you keep increasing taxes? Because neither of those 2 options sound sustainable, and I do not expect you to answer the question right away, because I know it is a very multidimensional question, and it is going to be debated a lot in the new council. So what's your stand on it?
Yeah, like you said, Roop, I mean, it's a multifaceted issue. It's not a simple answer. I mean, we go back to 2014, we started to come into a little bit of a recession there with oil and gas plummeting. And then the global pandemic obviously hit the world. Geopolitical, oil and gas price wars between Saudi Arabia and Russia took oil into negative territory last year, and so much more. So our city has been hit quite a bit. And the result of that is now 1/3 of our downtown office towers remain vacant. And that's a big problem. And we need to focus on a few different things here. Obviously, we need to fill up those towers. We need to incentivize business to move into Calgary, diversify our economy. So looking at agribusiness, technology, clean energy. I think we could still be a powerhouse in the energy sector, but we might need to move away from the traditional places that we were. But I also think we need to get creative with the way we do things. And I'll bring up an example from my private experience. Being a pricing actuary, I used to come up with sophisticated pricing models to price products and premiums and that type of stuff. So I brought those ideas to City Hall 4 years ago. And I was shut down because that Municipal Government Act, and I want to educate the viewers here, the MGA, which is passed by the province of Alberta, literally mandates to the city the way we can run and operate. So the taxation code that we have in terms of how we can tax and how we can't is passed by the province. So anyone can go check it out. Go to Google Municipal Government Act and go to the tax section. You'll see the rules that the city has to do taxation, and it's very, very limited. So one idea I had was, so our downtown office towers are now 30% vacant. We're in a boom and bust economy. And we've had the bust before, we've had the booms before. So why don't we be proactive rather than reactive? In good times, these downtown office towers, they're owned by multinational REITs, multi-billion-dollar corporations that can afford to pay a little bit more in the good times. So why not surcharge them through a creative taxation model, surcharge them a little bit more in the good times, create a reserve fund or a savings account, and make sure we don't touch it with our pet projects and that type of stuff, but use that additional revenue that we have collected in the downtimes, and make sure that we don't come to residents, we don't come to industrial, we don't come to small business or retail when the times are tough. And the problem, again, is the MGA doesn't allow us to do that. So what we need to do, and what I'll promise to do starting on day one, is to advocate to the Minister of Municipal Affairs with the province of Alberta and other MLAs and the government of Alberta to make sure we do have the right tools, to make sure the next time something like this happens, we don't have to go back to residents, and we don't have to go back to small business or retail, to make sure we keep that same level of servicing, because we don't want to reduce that. I mean, we still need snow removal, we still need Calgary Police, Calgary Fire, we still need parks and recreation, but there's creative ways of getting there without increasing taxes on the rest of our citizens.
I think you've answered all my rest of my questions. You mentioned the art funding. Excuse me. You mentioned art funding, you mentioned police funding, and you mentioned revitalization of downtown, which is the buzz phrase this election. So I think we can wrap up our interview here. But I do have a question pertaining Ward 5. It has grown so rapidly in the last few years, and repeatedly when I talk to people living in Ward 5, I keep hearing of, like you mentioned, the snow removal services. Issues like that keep cropping up. People are not happy because they don't have schools in the area yet. I understand schools come under the provincial jurisdiction, but people are not getting the services that they come to expect from a city administration. So how do you plan to address that?
Yeah, good question. And let me just touch on the schools really quickly before we go into the snow. So schools, I get this at the doors a lot as well. And I understand the passion that people have. I mean, especially in the northern communities of Ward 5, Skyview, Redstone, Cornerstone, and Cityscape. They'll see a sign that says future schools coming. They might buy a home based on that premise, and a school doesn't come for 5 years, 10 years. So there's a committee called the Joint Use Coordinating Committee. It's called JUCC. It has the City of Calgary, the Province of Alberta, and Calgary Board of Education within that committee. And the city's role in schools is simply giving the land up to the province, as you said, Roop. The province is responsible for capital and operating costs through the Calgary Board of Education. And everyone knows, as of this day, if you go ask the province for a little bit of funding, they'll say we're broke and we don't have anything to right. So I think we need to push our MLAs. We need to make sure we get prioritization for our schools. We have the fastest growing communities up there in Northern Ward 5, and I'll keep advocating for that. I'll keep pushing for that. I do have a lot of those relationships as well, so that's something we need to keep pushing. On snow removal, this is a really good question, and I know it impacts all Calgarians. I'll give you a relative example, Roop. The City of Calgary's snow removal budget is about $35 to $40 million, and a relative size city, Montreal, comparative to Calgary, their snow removal budget is about $300 million. And they actually remove their snow. We clear our snow. So in Montreal, what they do is when the snow trucks come into your communities, they have dump trucks behind them. They pick up the snow, put the snow in the dump trucks, and clear it away from the communities. So we don't have the same issues that we have here in Calgary. So I think this is a place where we can invest a little bit more. Again, by finding efficiencies at City Hall, by finding efficiencies through our tax code, I believe we can find money to actually invest in places where we need to invest, such as snow removal. And I know we can do that.
Last but not the least, why should anyone living in Ward 5 choose to vote for Stan Sundu to be their councillor?
So over the past 4 years, I mean, I worked on many projects that drove a lot of investment into Northeast Calgary. And I feel like I was part of some of the decision making that put a spotlight on some of the neglect that we faced in the past. The Genesis Center soccer fields, one of the first projects I worked on, such an important investment. I was there last Friday, I saw a bunch of our youth playing soccer Friday evening at 7:30. And if we don't have amenities like that, we all know some of our youth might get caught up in whether it's violence or drugs and that type of stuff. So that was a really important investment that I was passionate about. Cornerstone, we got a new field house funded. We got a new high school site up there as well. In Saddleridge Industrial, we got an athletic park, 4 big FIFA-sized soccer fields. Tournament quality, it will drive a lot of national and provincial tournaments right here into Northeast Calgary. Good for our local hospitality sector, our hotels, our restaurants, the local economy. I worked really hard on hailstorm recovery. I worked really hard on public safety and so much more. So what I bring to the table is experience, both private and public. There's no on-the-job training. On day one, I will be ready to advocate and fight for the programs, amenities, and services that we all deserve. And I'm so happy and I'm so excited to do that with all of you. Please, advanced polling starts Monday, October 4th to the 10th, and the election is on October 18th. For more information on my platform, please check out VOTESTAN.CA or check out our social media.
I do have a follow-up question on that, Stan. I remember speaking to someone in the community a few weeks ago about everything that you just mentioned, that the work that has been done in Genesis and Cornerstone. And I remember them asking me, if Stan did all that work, what did George do? Because you were in that office when all this work was done. So can you clarify your contribution to all these projects?
Absolutely. So being the chief of staff in terms of policy development, processes, working with other offices, doing all the research, getting things done, I did a lot of that work. Obviously, George Chahal was the councillor, and as the councillor, you're the one running the office. But in terms of working on the projects and having the experience of how to get things done, I did a lot of that work behind the scenes. And like I said, policies, processes, procedures prepares me from day one to get things done and keep continuing the work that we started.
I've been there in an MLA's office, so I completely understand what you mean by that. So hopefully they'll answer the question that my friend had a few weeks ago. And hopefully if anyone else has the same question, this answers that for them as well. Thank you so much for making the time to be here today. It takes immense courage to put your name forward to run in any election. Congratulations for taking that first big step, and I wish you the very best.
Thanks for having me, Roop.